First century AD. Outside the walls of Lystra, a crowd gathers. Stones fly. A man collapses, seemingly dead. They drag him outside the city and leave him there. 14 years later, he writes of being caught up to paradise, unsure of whether he was in his body or out of it. The man was the Apostle Paul, was one of Christianity's most influential figures, shaped by a near-death experience. Paul began as a persecutor of Christians, a Pharisee who approved the execution of men like St. Stephen. Then something happened. Paul had an encounter with the spiritual world. It changed his life and his beliefs, and for the rest of his days, the man who once hunted Christians became one. But Paul's new religion often made him unpopular, a heretic even. Just because he changed his mind about Christianity doesn't mean that the Roman Empire did. And he was frequently beaten and maligned. He even survived his own stoning. But he never gave up. And in one brief passage, he hints at an experience that may explain why. I must go on boasting. Although there is nothing to be gained, I will go on to visions and revelations from the Lord. I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. And I know that this man, whether in the body or apart from the body, I do not know, but God knows, was caught up to paradise and heard inexpressible things, things that no one is permitted to tell. I will boast about a man like that, but I will not boast about myself, except about my weaknesses. Are these 5 verses evidence of a thousands of years old near-death experience? Most scholars believe that the man in Christ 14 years back Paul writes about was Paul himself. Did he have this experience when he was stoned and left for dead in Lystra? What's undeniable is that during this brief account, Paul describes phenomena that are shockingly similar to another traveler who would record his experiences 1,700 years later. Born almost 2 millennia after Paul, Emanuel Swedenborg spent the latter half of his adult life studying the Bible while, he claimed, speaking to spirits and traveling within the spiritual world. He too was seen as a heretic, a crime in both men's cultures. He faced social isolation, criticism, even legal action, but it didn't stop him. I realize many will claim that no one can talk to spirits and angels as long as bodily life continues, or that I am hallucinating, or that I have circulated such stories in order to play on people's credulity, and so on. But none of this worries me. I have seen, I have heard, I have felt. Paul's story and Swedenborg's writings both share remarkably similar characteristics with people throughout history who have nearly died, but come back. They too claim to have seen impossible things. Is the impossible possible? Could these corroborating stories have something to tell us about the afterlife? Paul's brief story actually contains many of the elements we hear about in modern NDEs. The first is the out-of-body experience. Paul says, whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. Many modern near-death experiencers report being out of their bodies, even seeing their bodies below or in front of them. In research conducted by the Journal of Near-Death Studies, a little over a third of the respondents reported that an out-of-body experience was the first aspect of the near-death experience, and a return to the body as the final part of their NDE. According to the researchers, the most commonly shared sequence of an NDE involved an out-of-body experience, then experiencing a tunnel, then seeing a bright light, and finally a feeling of peace. Swedenborg wrote about being out of the body. Since our spirit means our mind, therefore being in the spirit refers to the state of our mind when it is separated from our body. In this state, our spirit can move from place to place while our body stays where it is, as is also true of our mind's eye. This is the state I myself have been in now for 26 years. With the difference that I am in my spirit and my body at the same time, and only sometimes out of my body. Peter, James, and John were in the same state when they saw Jesus transfigured, as was Paul when he heard ineffable things from heaven. Being in the spirit may well be the state Paul described. Now let's investigate the ineffable things from heaven that Paul saw and heard. Verse 2 ends with this phrase, I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. Third heaven. What is that? Paradise? A higher ascendant realm? Ancient beliefs from Greece and Rome? Or was it just a strange turn of phrase? For Swedenborg, Paul's words are no accident. He described different levels of heaven, exactly 3, each containing countless communities. There are 3 heavens, very clearly distinguished from each other. There is a central or third heaven, an intermediate or second one, and an outmost or first. These follow in sequence and are interdependent. Like the highest part of the human body, the head, the middle or torso, and the lowest or feet, or like the highest, middle, and lowest parts of a house. These levels correspond to our minds, which also contain different levels, from the external to intermediate to the deepest realms of our consciousness. This is because, Swedenborg believed, each of us is divinely designed as a heaven in miniature. Swedenborg believed we are all capable not just of going to heaven, but of being heaven. According to him, this potential is within all of us. It needs to be quite clear that it is the inner nature of angels that determines which heaven they are in. The more the deeper levels have been opened, the more inward the heaven they are in. There are 3 inner levels of every angel and spirit, and of every person here as well. The deeper levels are opened by our acceptance of divine good and divine true gifts. All of heaven is a good and loving place, but Swedenborg believed the third heaven is the most loving of them all, a place where people are most connected to God. But wherever we end up in the spiritual world depends entirely on who we are, who we have become. How do you describe the indescribable? Many NDE survivors struggle to convey their experiences into words. Was caught up to paradise and heard inexpressible things, things that no one is permitted to tell. The challenge of opening up about such experiences is so common that organizations who research, document, and share near-death experiences have advice pages for how and when to share their stories, and how to process them. Of course, these resources weren't available to Paul or his contemporaries, and we don't know whether the vision was indescribable or whether the man was not allowed to describe it. We do know, though, that the Bible often tells us there is more to learn that we can't understand yet. I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. There were also times that Swedenborg was unable to describe his experiences, even if he had wanted to. He describes being in a state that allows him to converse with spirits. At such times, I understood everything, but when I returned to my original state, and therefore into the normal thought processes of physical consciousness, and wanted to recall what I had heard, I could not. There were 1,000 things that were inexpressible except by subtle shifts of heavenly light, and not at all then in human words. And apparently there were things Swedenborg was not permitted to write about the spiritual world. In 1780, a Reverend Arvid Ferelius wrote a report that he had been with Swedenborg shortly before his death, and tried to persuade him to retract the things he had written. Reverend Ferelius noted Swedenborg's response. "As true as you have seen me before your eyes, so true is everything that I have written. And I could have said more, had it been permitted. When you enter eternity, you will see everything, and then you and I shall have much to talk about." Much to talk about indeed. We can only imagine what was left out of Swedenborg's reports, and of Paul's. But the accounts they left us were enough to inspire hope, and ended up being a catalyst that changed the world. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that episode of the NDE Files. This show is produced by the not-for-profit Swedenborg Foundation. If you want to support us and the creation of this program, consider becoming a member of this channel. You'll get some cool perks and help know that you're spreading this content out for the next person to find. Thanks.